It's recently come to my attention that there has been some concern in the Monster Hunter community about a particular weapon in the upcoming title Monster Hunter Wilds. A concern that threatens to challenge the very foundations of everything we know about Monster Hunter. If what people are saying is true, then the very future of the series is in question. No one is safe from this impending threat. What the hell am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the hunting horn, and I'm talking about the feature in the upcoming game, Monster Hunter Wilds, where you can bring two different weapons with you on your quest, and you can switch between them on the fly in the middle of combat. Why the controversy, though? What is the issue with hunting horn and being able to bring two weapons with you on each quest? It goes something like this. There's a theory that's been going around that says if Monster Hunter players are allowed to bring two weapons with them when they go out to quest, then people may get the idea that one of those weapons could be a hunting horn. Scary, I know. Okay, sarcasm aside, this is a real issue for some people. Now, if you still don't quite understand why this would upset a certain subset of the community, let me try to break it down for you. Well, the first issue that people have pointed out is they've said, well, if you can bring a hunting horn with you on the quest, then what's to stop you from switching to your hunting horn, buffing yourself? Because if you don't know already, hunting horn will give you buffs. You can get attack up buffs, defense buffs, element boost buffs. You can get quality of life buffs, things like that. So what's to stop you from buffing yourself with the horn and then switching to another weapon and playing the game using those hunting horn buffs? That's the concern in a nutshell. Now, you still might be thinking, what's the big deal? Who cares? And if you don't see any inherent problem with this scenario, congratulations, you're a normal human being. Congratulations, you are a positive contributor to the Monster Hunter community. Congratulations, you're a good person. Now, it sounds silly, right? But that's it. That is it in a nutshell. I'm not sure where the controversy started. My understanding is it started on Twitter and then started spreading to YouTube, where there have been a handful of videos made about this issue, like deep dives into this issue. Yeah, deep dives into people potentially bringing hunting horn with them on a quest, because that's what it amounts to, right? You get to bring two weapons. If one of those weapons is hunting horn, that apparently is an issue. I mean, if you really want to put it in perspective, that's what it amounts to. People are concerned that Wilds players might bring a hunting horn with them, might use the hunting horn at all. Well, there must be more to it than that, right? There must be more to it. This concern has been so widespread now that it actually came up in one of the developer Q&As. Somebody asked the question to the man, the guys who are responsible for Monster Hunter Wilds. They actually asked that question. What happens if somebody brings a hunting horn with them and decides they want to buff themselves with it and then switch back to another weapon? And they phrase the question as if it were a bad thing. Still not understanding why this might be a bad thing. I don't blame you, because it just isn't a bad thing. It's logically not a bad thing. What if somebody said, well, don't bring hammer as your backup weapon. Don't bring a heavy bowgun as your backup weapon, because, I'm concerned that people are bringing heavy bowgun as their secondary weapon, because what if they use it to shoot the monster from long distance and then switch to their main weapon when they get closer? It doesn't sound at all like a problem, does it? Don't bring a hammer with you as your backup weapon, because what if somebody decides to use the hammer to get a KO on the monster and then switch to their main weapon to start attacking the monster while he's down? Doesn't sound like a problem, does it? But when it comes to hunting horn, apparently people have a problem with others using it on a quest, right? It's like, if you're going to play hunting horn, this is how it goes for them. If you're going to play hunting horn, you can't switch. away from it. You have to use the hunting horn exclusively. That's really what their argument is. That's what they're trying to imply here. Still, what is the issue? Now, if you haven't come up with it in your head, that's fine. It's very subtle. If you have, pause the video, go down there and type up what you think their real issue is with this. And we'll wait for you. It's okay. We'll be here when you get back. From my perspective, the issue boils down to this, especially based on what was said in the developer interview. The issue is this. What if it becomes a very powerful strategy for people to buff themselves with hunting horn and then use another weapon to take advantage of those buffs? What if it's powerful? What if it's more powerful than not having those buffs, right? What if 2 + 2 equaled something more than 2? Scary thought. So that alone on its own isn't an issue, right? That's the whole point of bringing 2 weapons. So you can come up with new ways to synergize different weapon types into a play style that works really well for you. So the implication here goes a little beyond that, because obviously it's more effective if you have those buffs, right? Unfortunately, it comes down to this. And I say unfortunately because so many of my videos talk about this. And this is yet another example where this issue creeps into every aspect of the Monster Hunter community and how we want to play the game. And the issue I'm talking about is the issue of the meta. That's the concern these people have. These people's concern is, what if, now hear me out, they say, what if the meta changes from whatever it is in Rise or World? What if the meta changes to something that involves a hunting horn? What if? What if the weapon that the meta people like to shit on the most just happens to become part of the new meta? Meaning, what if it happens to become part of the best way to play the game based on their standards, right? Not mine, not yours necessarily, but based on their standards. What if it becomes part of the best way to play the game? What then? Their world is crumbling down all around them at the thought of hunting horn becoming part of a meta. It gets worse than that. It really does, because this is the point where the meta people tip their hand. They tell us that play however you want, but the meta that we develop is objectively the best way to play the game because you're supposed to, clear your quests quickly and have high DPS and be very efficient. So efficiency means best. And even if on some rare occasion they do acknowledge that it is subjective, that you first have to want to play more efficiently and then the meta applies to you. Even if on the rare occasion they grant you that, they're still tipping their hand, because the implication that was made is, what if everyone, or at least the majority of the player base, starts playing this way and brings hunting horn as their backup weapon? What if very few people ever decide to try different weapons? You see how subtly narcissistic that is? Do you see how much projection is involved there? The people who think that this is an issue, that this is some sort of controversy, are saying everybody has a desire to play the meta. Everybody should play the meta. Everybody will end up playing the meta because the meta is the best way to play. They're also saying that there won't be any innovation because of the meta. Now, the interesting thing is, one of my arguments against the meta is exactly that. When you strongly define a meta and you promote a meta and you tell people that the efficiency is the best way to play the game, meaning DPS efficiency is the best way to play the game, you are stifling innovation and creativity. So that's my argument against a meta. Now they're trying to use that argument to prevent hunting horn from becoming part of their meta. That's how scared they are. So they're acting as if they're looking out for the community by posing this scenario, all the while assuming that most people will follow their meta. Now, if this were an anti-meta person bringing up these concerns, then it wouldn't be an issue, okay? Because An anti-meta person would realize that most people don't follow the meta, and most people don't want to follow the meta, and most people can't follow the meta. So anyone who's afraid that the entire community is going to start tracking in this one direction and bringing a hunting horn along with them and refusing to innovate playstyles, that person themselves is a meta chaser. Someone who's so concerned about what the meta might be. Is there any other way to view this? I don't think so. The entire controversy revolves around the self-centeredness of the meta community and their insecurity about whether or not the hunting horn will be something that they have to now start using. And that type of fear is what you'd expect from someone who doesn't know how to innovate, who doesn't have creativity, and who cannot imagine scenarios outside of the groupthink. Does any of that sound familiar? Now, for anyone who is actually concerned about this issue, I just got to give you a heads up on this so that you can stop the nonsense and you can stop bugging us all about it. Consider this my public service announcement to anyone concerned about the hunting horn becoming part of their meta. Capcom doesn't give a shit about your meta bullshit. They don't. They don't care one bit. They don't care what you decide is the most efficient way to play the game. They don't care what you decide is the optimal, objective, best DPS method of playing the game. They just don't. So you can go to them with all your concerns about what the meta might be, and all you're going to get from them is a very diplomatic response saying, we acknowledge your concern and we are making sure that we address these issues for the release of the product. What that means is, in PR speak, we don't care what you think the best way to play this game is. Capcom has told us on multiple occasions that the whole point of Monster Hunter is for you to find your own way through the game, find what weapon clicks with you, what weapon resonates with you, what weapon gives you the most fun and enjoyment out of the game. And now, not only have they given us 14 different weapons to experiment with, now they're letting us pick 2. Instead, we had to pick 1. Now we get to pick 2. And we get to combine the play styles of 2 different weapons into one bigger, broader play style in the quest where we can switch back and forth. That type of freedom has a multiplicative effect. We used to have 14 options to explore play styles. Now we have 14 times, how do you do the math on this? We have 14 weapons, and each weapon, you pick one of those 14 and you can pair it with one of the other 13. So instead of having 14 combinations, we now have 14 times 13 combinations of weapons to experiment with. Does that make sense? Now, we have to divide that by 2 because order doesn't matter. You're going to get a mirror image pairing on that. And so if you take longsword and hunting horn, it's the same thing as taking hunting horn and longsword. So you divide that by 2. So let's do the math on that real quick. So now we have 91, where before we had 14 weapons to choose from and experiment with to develop our playstyle. Now we have 91 combinations of 2 weapons to experiment with and define our playstyle. When you do that math, it becomes clear what these people are actually afraid of. They're not afraid of everyone flocking to hunting horn as their secondary weapon. They're afraid that now, with 91 weapon combinations to explore, they're afraid that they won't be able to determine what the meta actually is. That's a lot of combinations, isn't it? That's what they're afraid of. How are you going to test 91 different weapon combinations in order to determine which one's the best? And even if you're trying to use speedrunners as a gauge of what's the best weapon combination, it's hard enough right now to get enough speedrunners to run all 14 weapons against a multitude of monsters in order to get enough data to determine which weapons excel. Imagine trying to get speedrunners to run all 91 combinations of 2 weapons to get enough data in order to determine what their speedrun meta is. it's going to be impossible. It's just impossible. There isn't enough manpower in the meta community to do it. There isn't enough manpower in the speedrunning community to do it. That's a deep thought right there. We got two takeaways from all this. Two major takeaways. They're both really positive developments from my perspective. The first one is this. It's becoming more clear to me that Capcom is concerned about the meta, but not in that they are concerned about what it is. By giving us access to two different weapons in the quest, Capcom's concern is the same as my concern, that the meta community has had a strong enough negative impact on the broader Monster Hunter community as a whole that Capcom has decided to take steps to make it nearly impossible for a meta to develop. And so if you take away the ability for the meta community to develop a meta, then they don't have the ability to use the data that they do come up with against the rest of us to try to bully us into playing their way. And that's a really good thing. Now, whether Capcom did this intentionally or not, I don't know. My guess is that this was intentional on their part for this very reason. Whether it was or not, it doesn't matter, because the actual outcome of allowing two weapons on your quest achieves that goal. It breaks the meta as we know it, and it breaks the ability for the meta community to do what they do best. Tell us the best way to play the game. And I'm actually really excited about that. The second development that's going to come out of this game mechanic where we're allowed to bring two weapons is that speedrunners are going to become less and less relevant to the community at large. Their achievements are going to look less and less impressive for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's no way that they're going to be able to optimize strategies when there are 91 possibilities for them to choose from. It's just not going to happen. There will always be doubt in our minds. Well, did you try this combination? Did you try that combination? The task ahead of them is enormous. They're going to be spending so much time on their research that they won't have any time to proselytize and evangelize and fake us out and try to influence us and try to garner our approbation. And when you combine that with the recent cheating scandals that have plagued the top speedrunners in the Monster Hunter community, I think WILDS is going to be the breaking point for them. To me, those are both great outcomes, because the implications of all that is simply this. You and I get to go back to our roots with Monster Hunter Wilds. We get to go back to a time when we didn't have everyone shouting at us about what's the best way to play the game, or you're doing it wrong, or you're taking the wrong stuff with you on the quest. You're using the wrong weapon. You're using the wrong combos. We get to go back to a time when Monster Hunter was magical, when Monster Hunter was exciting, when the thrill of discovery was right there. We get to go back to a time when we could play the game the way we really wanted to, without the noise, without the static surrounding us, without having to shut out the nonsense, without having to say, yeah, I'm not going to play online because of all those people telling me what to do. I'm not going to go on message boards because of all those people telling me what to do. I'm going to avoid Reddit for the next year while I enjoy this game. People have told me that. Just read comments on my videos about this subject, and they'll say things like that. So this is good. You know, what started as a fake hunting horn controversy has exposed the real fears of the meta community and has given us a shining light at the end of the tunnel for a Monster Hunter game that's going to be as fun as Monster Hunter ever has been for you and me. And I think it's going to exceed all of our expectations in that respect. This is the death knell for the meta community. Yeah, there's going to be some stragglers still hanging on, still trying to do their thing. But with 91 combinations of weapons, we shouldn't have to worry about them for another 10 or 12 years. They will give us their opinions this time around for sure. But there's always going to be that doubt. Did you test every combination? The answer is going to be no, we didn't. And we'll be able to just simply throw that back at them. Well, get back to me when you've tested all 91. now, for the first time, I'm really excited about Monster Hunter Wilds. I'm getting hyped. And for me, this is my turning point right here. Hey, hope you enjoyed the video. Click the like button if you liked the video. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below. Whether you agree with me or not, leave a comment. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Come on over to the Patreon. Support me over there. It's really cheap. Cheaper than Netflix. Cheaper than coffee. Cheaper than Monster Hunter Wilds. And I'd like to thank all my current Patreon subscribers for their contributions and support. I greatly appreciate everything you guys do. And I'll see you guys in the next one.